I guess the best place to start with this story is the first day that I realised I was gay. I was in year 8 and my best friend had just started school with us, and I took one look at him and I went, oh, okay, this is different. The next 7 years of high school were probably the toughest years of my life. They are supposedly the years where you discover who you are, and for me, who I was differed from what seems like every other person my age. I had never felt more alone in my life, but I knew that I could fix this feeling of isolation, but it wasn't going to be as easy as sitting one of my friends down and saying, hey, I need to talk to someone, I think I'm gay, and I definitely couldn't go home to my parents and sit them down and say, look, I'm having a really tough time at school, and it's because I'm gay, so let's talk about that. They are also two of the scariest words that I have ever said in my entire life. I got asked all the time if I was gay, and if it wasn't by my friends, then it was by my siblings. I got called gay quite a bit growing up, and it made me feel like shit. And every time someone said it, it just emphasized the fact that for me, being gay somehow seemed to lower my sense of worth as a person. When my friends would ask me, or tell me for that matter, that I was gay, I'd laugh it off, or I'd change the subject, or deny it straight away. But then when I got asked at home, I used to get really angry and defensive, and it would infuriate me. Whenever homosexuality came up in a conversation, I would either shut off and not speak because I was under the impression that if I had an opinion or that I supported it, that people would figure me out. If homophobic remarks were thrown and used, I would use them straight back again to keep up this impression that I wasn't gay. But every time I did that, a little piece of my heart broke. I built this wall where every day I would get out of bed and I'd stand behind it, and this wall would literally determine the way I would act and even the way that I spoke. And as hard as it was living this lie, I got used to it. It was so difficult growing up, feeling like I was the only person going through something which I had no control over. I didn't know if any of my friends were gay, which made it that much harder for me to deal with. But during high school, YouTube got really big and people started posting coming out videos, and I would get home from school and I'd watch them every day, and I found solace listening to people tell their stories, knowing that one day I would have the courage to do what they are doing and be myself and let everybody into my life. The first person that I told was a friend, and I texted her and asked her what she would think if I told her I was gay. And she replied to me that she wouldn't care, and she asked me why, and I just said, because I am. After school, I moved back to Australia and I went to uni, which was a 3-hour drive from home. Because I lived out there, I just thought that it would be easy, and it should have been easy to live as myself. And I soon realised that it wasn't going to be that easy, even though I was still so far away from everyone. I still had to work up the courage to tell people. So I put it off. And I went home for my first uni break after 3 months. And I was more confident, my entire personality had changed, and I was even happier, but I still hadn't come out yet. Every time I would drive home for the next year and a half, for a holiday or a weekend visit, I would plan the conversation in my head, often just saying, I'm gay, out loud, to lessen the power behind those words. I made it through my first year of uni closeted, and a friend of mine called me and said that she wasn't coming back to uni the next year. So we went out for dinner and we walked around and we said our goodbyes. We went to the train station, so I started to text her and I wrote this massive message, and what she replied to me was the single most supporting thing I've ever heard in my life, and she would have no idea how much it meant to me that she was so supportive of me. And I had just revealed the biggest secret of my life, and to have her respond in the way that she did, literally, it just made me feel so happy that I think I cried the whole way home from a 45-minute train ride. My second year at uni was probably the toughest year that I have ever been through, because it was the year that I decided to come out to everybody. And in classic me style, I decided to text my brother and sister The text message itself took me 4 hours to compose, because I had to make sure that every single word was perfect. Got a reply within minutes from both of them, and again, I was welcomed with so much love and support, and I honestly can't thank them enough for just being who they are and allowing me to be me. When it came time to telling my friends though, I legitimately got so blackout drunk that I went to a music festival at uni and I hooked up with this guy all day, and lo and behold, everyone at uni found out. But it was really easy, and for me, it's probably the best way that I could have done it. Now that everyone was in the loop, all I had to do was tell my parents. But they don't live in Australia, so it was pretty difficult to kind of sit them down and have the conversation. But the pressure was on because my brother and sister had known, my auntie knew, and any of them could have told my parents at any time that they wanted. So for the next 4 months, I tried to tell my parents, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And they also started asking a lot of questions. Uni had finished for the second year, and I was now 2 weeks before my 21st. So I went up the coast with mum to visit my grandparents. And the drive takes about 3 hours, but for the first 2.5 of those hours, I was absolutely silent. But I knew this was the time, I knew that I had to do it, but I'd also never been more petrified in my entire life than I was in this moment. I turned down the music and I started to talk to mum about my 21st and who was going to make a speech and what order the speech was going to be in, and I let her know about what mine was going to be about. And I just kind of turned to her and I said, hey, I'm pretty sure Luke is going to out me as gay in his speech at my party. And she kind of jumped back in surprise and was like, and I looked at her and I said, yeah, well, it's true, I'm gay. Mum really wanted to tell Dad so desperately, but I said, no, this is my news and that I wanted to do it. And he arrived a week and a half later, the day before my 21st, and I picked him up from the airport because Mum insisted that this would be the perfect time to tell him when we were alone in the car. I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm gonna do it. This is it. Or it isn't, because it wasn't the time that I wanted to do it. So later on, he went down to the shops with my brother, and before they left, Luke ran up to me and whispered in my ear and he said, I'm gonna tell Dad. And I thought, you know what, do it, because then I'm not gonna have to do it. And it would be so much easier for him just to know that I'm gay than for me to have to work up the courage again to tell him. I don't know how the conversation went, but I was sat on the couch when they got home and Dad came in with a case of Coke. He filled up the fridge, which took about 10 minutes, and then he came over to me and he sat down next to me and he said that there was no need for me to ever need to hide myself or to be scared to tell him anything, and that he loved me. And then he gave me a hug, and I then felt this massive release and this massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders, because my whole family had known and my whole family had been supportive, and they didn't care that I was gay. That's all they wanted for me was to be happy. My 21st was pretty much a coming out party, and I loved every single minute of it. And I'm fully out now, and I have been for over a year, and it feels absolutely wonderful. I spent close to a decade in fear of what other people would think of me for being myself, and I was really worried about how differently I was going to be treated and what people were going to say. But in reality, I have been met with nothing but the most amazing love and support from every single person in my life. And you have no idea how much that means to me to feel that from you guys. So from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for loving me and being so supportive of this time in my life.